One of the more disorienting parts of recovery is realizing that clarity is not always consistent. You may have moments where everything feels obvious. You can see the manipulation clearly. You understand what happened. You feel certain about why you left. And then, sometimes without warning, that clarity can seem to fade again. The doubt returns. The confusion softens the edges. You start reconsidering things you already understood. You may even question whether it was really that bad. For many people, this fluctuation becomes frightening. Not just because clarity changes, but because fluctuating certainty can begin to erode trust in your own perception. But fluctuating clarity after narcissistic abuse is not necessarily a sign that you are losing touch with reality again. It is often what happens when a destabilized system is trying to reorganize itself after prolonged contradiction. That is a very different interpretation. Most people expect clarity to work like a permanent conclusion. Once you see it, you should stay certain. Once you understand the relationship, the confusion should disappear. But post-exit clarity rarely behaves that cleanly, because clarity is not only intellectual. You are not simply reviewing information. You are trying to stabilize perception after a long period of contradiction. When someone has spent enough time overriding their own perception to preserve attachment, clarity can arrive in waves instead of remaining fully stable. That does not mean the insight was false. It means different parts of the system are adjusting at different speeds. One part of you may recognize the reality clearly. Another part may still be organized around what once felt emotionally survivable. And when those layers move unevenly, certainty can fluctuate. This is why many survivors become confused by their own inconsistency after leaving. One day, the relationship feels unmistakably harmful. The next day, the mind starts softening it, reframing it, questioning it, looking for nuance that temporarily reduces the emotional weight of what became clear before. The return of confusion does not always mean clarity disappeared. Sometimes it means the system is moving back toward what previously felt more survivable. That distinction matters, because many people interpret fluctuating clarity as proof that they are dramatic, unstable, unforgiving, or incapable of making accurate decisions. But clarity becomes difficult to hold when your system spent a long time adapting to contradiction, especially when certainty once carried emotional consequences. A nervous system that learned to live inside inconsistency may not immediately know how to remain settled inside clarity. That adjustment often takes longer than people expect. Not because they are failing, but because stabilization and recognition are not the same process. As this becomes clearer, the fluctuation itself can start to feel less alarming. Not comfortable necessarily, but more understandable. Instead of treating every return of doubt as evidence that you imagined everything, it may become more accurate to recognize that clarity is still stabilizing. And stabilization is rarely perfectly linear. If you're noticing that your clarity feels strong one moment and uncertain the next, I created a 30-day stabilization space as something structured you can step into while you move through this period without needing to force certainty before you're ready. It's linked below if and when you want to explore it. And if you prefer to stay here and continue orienting at your own pace, that is completely valid. Clarity does not have to remain perfectly constant in order to still be real. We'll pause here.